Om Sadashiva Samarambam Sharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Motive Vivagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanantam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Shanti 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 Om. Namaste. Welcome everyone to our Q&A. So, do we have any contributions today? David, please.
Sure. Happy New Year, or happy last day of 2020. Yay! So, in my notes, I've got it in my notes from Monday that that there's levels of moksha, and I'm not even sure, like, why I put that in there. But are there levels of moksha? And then as kind of part of that is, if assuming one's living a life in moksha, if you will, is how does that apply to dealing with suffering that occurs in the jiva's life? So suffering meaning, you talked about old age and pain and death. Those are all things that that are just part of this of mithya. So if you're experiencing moksha, are you still experiencing suffering?
So let's begin by your last statement. Experiencing moksha or enjoying the freedom which is derived. So, só minutinho. Just a moment. Hello, Jesus. Can you hear me now? He wrote a note. Tentando sem som. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he says something in chat.
Okay, he wrote to me in Portuguese because he's Brazilian, but he understands English, but he's having problem to get his audio to work. So I don't know what to tell him, because most probably something on his configuration, and he wrote me something, but I don't know how to help him. If Ronaldo,
he could dial in. He could dial in on his he could use his cell phone and dial in. He could try that, but that's
no.
At least he can hear, and he could write questions via chat.
There is another person here that has just entered the room. So Jesus, hello Maria. Let me see who is Maria Peters. Maria?
Hi from Holland.
You're from Holland, and how did you hear about us? From whom? From Elizabeth?
From the app of the European School of Theosophy.
Okay. Understood. Do you know Elizabeth?
I'm sorry, are you asking me something?
No, because we have one of our people participating in these classes is from Holland, right, Lynn? Elizabeth is from Holland, right?
Actually, she lives in Oregon.
Oh, yeah. She's Dutch,
local.
but she lives in the USA. Yes. All right. Anyhow, Maria, so you are most welcome. We are having today a Q&A session. Okay, we are almost concluding the Viveka Chudamani, and we do it on Mondays, and you are most welcome. And on Thursdays we do Q&As, questions and answers relate to the classes. Okay, so please stay with us and feel welcome to participate in our small sangha. Okay, so David, your question is about suffering. You said, is there the last aspect of your question is there moksha or freedom from suffering with old age? You know, you are talking about other degrees of moksha. What is this consideration about degrees of moksha? And then you concluded asking if there is, and if the yani, the one with this knowledge about one's true nature, if this yani is going to live and suffer old age and sickness and death, and so is this moksha going to prevent the yani from suffering the inevitable deterioration of the physical body? Yes, moksha is freedom from the psychological suffering which is inherent to the human experience. Okay? So there is a distinction, clear distinction between hardship, unfavorable circumstance, physical pain, and psychological suffering. Okay? So papa karma, difficult circumstance, and a physical illness and pain, all of that is part of life, but these events do not necessarily mean psychological suffering. You understand? So psychological suffering is something else. Okay? Psychological suffering is a byproduct of the jiva, the fully identified with the body. And then when the body goes old, when the body goes ill, and when the body begins going, you know, and pain and so on. So the jiva who is fully identified with the body as the body, he is going to experience not only physical pain, but the jiva is going to experience psychological suffering. You understand? Whereas the yani, because he is fully identified with consciousness as consciousness, he is going to have an objective view of the body, and he's going to see the body going through illness, old age, and pain and death. But due to this identification with consciousness, with awareness, rather than with the body, the psychological suffering element is neutralized. You understand, David? It's as simple as that. Now, what happens to the degrees as you have presented it, you know, different levels of moksha. So again, there is something called self-realization or self-recognition or self-knowledge, which is, to use the words of Ramji, which is a hard and fast knowledge in regards to one's true nature, one's true identity. You understand? It is a solid, firm, hard and fast knowledge. I am limitless, free, unconcerned consciousness, awareness. So this is what self-knowledge is, okay? It's the knowledge in respect to one's true nature. Jesus, can you hear us now? Let's see, maybe not. So it's something that is related to a firm, clear, and direct, immediate knowledge about one's true nature, okay? This is self-knowledge, David. And there are no levels of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is something that you either know your true nature or you are still not clear about that. Once it's clear, you know. The same way that once we know that we are a human being, we have no doubt about being a cat, a dog, or a horse, because it's a solid, clear knowledge which is not subject to any question, any doubt, okay? So any forgetfulness, we don't forget that we are human being rather than a cat or a dog. So self-knowledge is a knowledge that has no levels. Once you know, okay? As long as you still have doubts about that, and then this self-knowledge is not fully, really assimilated and integrated, okay? So this is what we call self-realization or self-knowledge. Now, you have probably heard Ramji presenting the idea of self-actualization. So self-actualization is a process of fructification of self-knowledge. What does that mean? It means that one's self-knowledge begins growing roots in one's unconscious mind or causal body, and it begins canceling those residual ignorant vasanas is still pressing, okay, this subtle body with those old tendencies, those old predispositions, and so on. So it is a process which is equivalent to a process of purification of the subtle body, or the causal and subtle body. So what does that do to the human jiva, the jiva yani, jivan mukta? It does that he not only knows for sure what he is in his fundamental true nature, but he begins enjoying the fruits of knowing what and who he is. You understand? This is an interesting meeting today. Now we have Ronaldo, and I'm going to ask Ronaldo to see if he can help Jesus. Let me see Ronaldo here. Hey, Ronaldo. Hello, Ronaldo.
Hello, tudo bem?
Tudo bem. We have a friend from Brazil, Jesus. Can you hear now? Jesus, your audio is working now? No. So we have Jesus that he's trying to fix his audio, and I don't have the means to help him, and I don't want to interrupt the class to try to help him. So if by any chance you feel inclined, and if you have the energy, so you can send him a chat note and try to help him or not. It's up to you, okay? Going back to your question, David. Going back to your question. So self-knowledge is a hard and sharp and firm and solid understanding about my true nature as consciousness, that which infuse the intellect, the mind with life, you understand, and makes me a living creature. So I am the consciousness that shines in the mind, okay? I'm not the mind and I'm not the body. I'm not the body-mind complex. I'm not my experiences, okay? So I am the consciousness. This is self-knowledge. Once it is a doubtless understanding, once it's a doubtless knowledge, you know, in respect to what I am, and then it is a self-knowledge, it is a self-recognition, okay? It's a self-realization. Now I know for sure, and my knowledge is a doubt-free knowledge, okay? So this is self-knowledge. There are no degrees, there are no levels, okay? You either know or you are still dealing with certain doubts. That's why the manana is the stage in our process in which we're going to be working on our doubts in respect to these final statements of the Vedas, known as the Vedanta, okay? So we have to clear our doubts until we have this clear understanding on the intellectual level, and then from the intellectual doubtless understanding, it's a piece of cake to shift and see yourself as consciousness. The aparoksha jnana takes place once the intellectual certainty of knowledge is well established in the intellect, and then it's the moment that a click comes, and then one sees. This is self-knowledge. There are no stages, there are no levels, but moksha is the fructification, manifestation is the self-knowledge, manifest in a way that is going to refine the jiva mukta to an extent that he can enjoy this freedom in spite of all limitations presented by the Dharma field, by the life, by the circumstance, by the karmas, the difficulties, and so on. So we're going to enjoy our lives to the extent that this self-knowledge has grown roots to neutralize any and all. I mean, all is a very ambitious to think on those terms. It goes neutralizing those vasanas which are based on self-ignorance, which still survive self-recognition. You understand? I'm trying to put it in a way that is simple to understand. Self-knowledge is a firm knowledge, but it does not kill all vasanas which still resides, which still sits in the causal body. That we say that self-knowledge is the greatest killer of ignorance, the greatest purifier. But some ignorant-based vasanas, those very hardwired vasanas, likes and dislikes, desires and aversions, which are rooted on self-ignorance, because it's self-ignorance is beginningless, Some of those roots remain, and then it compels the Jivanmukta to react in certain ways, which is not the best representation of the knowledge, Aham Brahmasmi. But those are residual ignorance which still surface in the mind of the Jnani, okay? So freedom is when this process of neutralization of old hardwired vasanas has extensively processed. And then the individual, as I mentioned last class, the individual lives a life close to a life of a saint, someone who does not have any negative feelings and thoughts and emotions operating in his life, you understand? Which is easier said than accomplished, and it all goes as well with one's lifestyle. As I have said, I think in our class recently, to live as a householder is very challenging, And if you live as a swami in an ashram, it's my take that you have much less challenges than living as a householder, you understand? But moksha is not a privilege of the swamis. It is available to all householders as well, in spite of the challenge of living in a world that is hitting us with all kinds of adversities and provocations and so on, So is it more clear now, this point, David?
Well, yes, I think it's really interesting to make the differentiation between psychological suffering and physical suffering, and that's a subtlety that I hadn't really considered before, separating the two. So that makes sense to me. A question that remains for me is, we've talked about Shraddha as faith with inquiry, and just as as I guess as a qualification for self-knowledge. So in moksha, if you've removed all doubts, have you also removed all inquiry, so that there's no more inquiry? It's inquiry. You feel like as a jiva, you feel like inquiry is no longer necessary. That you can just accept everything with faith without inquiry. Is that another way of looking at moksha?
Well, we do this work of studying the scripture, following the logic presented by the Upanishads, for the purpose of understanding our true nature as conscious awareness. Okay, so once this is understood. So does the yoni need to do sadhana once this understanding takes place? Yes and no, you understand? Because all sadhana is mainly for the purpose of developing purity of mind to be able to understand and assimilate it. But there is a certain level of vigilance, so to speak, or sadhana, which is advised, is suggested to the yanis as well. And the simple way to put it is to remain associated to the scriptural knowledge and to remain associated to our gurus. Why? Because Maya is the greatest illusionist, as we say, the greatest trickist. So if we come to a point that we recognize who we are and we are clear about that, and then we say, okay, so now, I'm over with all of this, and I don't need any more any association with scriptural knowledge. I don't need association with my teachers and so on. So that is a little bit of a dangerous position because Maya is very powerful, you understand? So a lot of people may have a little setbacks here and there if they really walk. I know one guy that realized the self, and he went about enjoying the self-knowledge, and he was enjoyed by leaving the world and doing simple things and reconnecting with his family and going to the stadium to watch the games. He was doing things that he wasn't doing for a long time, and he was enjoying, because once you know who you are, your relationship with the world changes. And in the beginning, it's very, very nice, you understand? So after going about, and then he stopped coming to my meetings, my seminars in Brazil. He stopped going and traveling for most part to see Ramji in Europe. And then one day he told me at the time, no, I can't even read spiritual books anymore. And I said, okay, great. And he was enjoying samsara from the standpoint of knowing who he is. But it came a point somehow that he got a little bit tired of that, and he came back to the scripture, and he began again associating with knowledge and keeping, that connection with me and Ramji or somehow. It is advisable. It's not really necessary, but this vigilance, this association with wisdom is something that I find to be important. And I am very lucky because life has brought me this opportunity to share this self-knowledge and the teachings of Vedanta. And sharing these teachings is the great sadhana, one of the best spiritual sadhanas. And I have heard Swami Dayananda presenting it that way in the past, saying that teaching, sharing this knowledge is the greatest possible sadhana, because it keeps you associate to the scriptural knowledge, and it keeps you also making an effort to communicate this knowledge, which further clarifies and refines your own scriptural knowledge, you understand? So I find that if I wouldn't have this opportunity to share this knowledge, I don't know what I would do, quite frankly, Maybe I would still keep studying as I do. I mean, as you know, I mostly study with Swami Paramarthananda nowadays, and I would possibly continue doing that, or I would just live a simple life. But it's difficult to imagine that one can live without any connection or contact with the scriptures.
Thank you. And um, I'll release the floor to other people. I think it'd be interesting to talk a bit about, a simple life and what that means. And
Let me put your audio. Your mic is always a little soft, and I have a little trouble to hear. Okay, can you say it again?
Well, thank you for the clarification. And I think it's interesting to think about as a householder, living the simple life. And what does that mean as a simple life, as you said, a simple life with continued contact with the scriptures and with the teacher, and so that you can stay grounded and stay
Stay out of trouble.
resist the power of mithya, if you will. But so it's like resisting mithya and by living a simple life, and I think it's a very desirable type of thing for me anyway, to think about that. So but it doesn't necessarily have to be a discussion point here, but it's just something to think about.
No, it is important. It is a good topic because as we know, life has become so intense, so complex, so rushed and stressful and running all over the place and so on. And that kind of lifestyle is not really healthy, much less conducive to self-knowledge and assimilation and internalization of self-knowledge. So in any case, simplifying one.
Falando em inglês, o professor esqueceu do Brasil?
In any case, simplifying one's lifestyle is highly recommended. So just imagine to live a simple life. What are you going to do with a simple life? A simple life is a life that provides you with a lot of room, a lot of time, not to do things physically and and being all over the place, and then what are you going to do with the time? So if you're inclined to meditate, you meditate and you enjoy silence and peace. If you're inclined to study the scriptures, you study the scriptures, but you're going to live a simple life, meaning to say that you do not believe anymore that the world of objects of experience are going to solve your fundamental problem. You understand? And then you are no longer playing that game of running to achieve and gain and accomplish things, hoping that is going to help you to resolve your mind, a better house, a better Jesus, a better relationship, a better business, So you simplify your life, and this simplification of lifestyle should never be violent. It should be more something like a byproduct of understanding the limitation and the defects of all objects of experience. You understand? And then you begin downsizing, you begin simplifying. You want less and less because the less you have, the more you need to maintain, keep, and do things, So it's the meaning of that statement, that proverb that says, less is more. Less is more peace, more shanti, more time to contemplate and to meditate and to enjoy life, without all those rushes rushing through our minds and getting us all agitated, So a simple lifestyle is recommended in any case for anybody who is searching self-recognition and moksha and freedom from samsara, Otherwise, the mind is all the time, like too much like that, and then depressed when it's overrun, and then again, too much excited. So as we begin assimilating this scriptural knowledge, I mean, we start living a more simple life because we know that all these ideas we have about how to live and get this and get that, none of that is going to deliver the peace that we are really searching for, When you see it through, and then you become a little more lazy in a positive sense,
And you still have dharma. You still have your dharma to think about. Well, too, it's simple life, but what is your duty as well, and are you fulfilling your duties?
Yeah. Some people, I know some people that they don't have much of an option. So if you find yourself in a karmic situation in which you have a wife, 3, 4 children, and a grandmother to take care, and whatsoever, and then you have to do your dharma, and then it's a little more difficult. There was one person from England that used to join us sometime, Stephen, and his most complaint was that, how am I going to do this Vedantic work if I have to rush from morning to the evening in order to be a provider? He used to have 5 kids, if I'm not wrong. So, and business to run. So, I mean, not everybody is as lucky as Claudio. Claudio does not have wife, children. He only has an old uncle that he has to keep an eye here and there. And look how happy he is. I mean, he's very lazy, but he's very happy.
Claudia, you're gonna let him get away with that? So
What, David, please?
you understand lazy? It's not normally considered to be a nice attribute. So
Yeah, it's not only that, of course. I have also other duties. I will do other things if I could, but now I have some karma with my family, and I have to do my duty for the moment, but I hope it will change soon. So
Yeah,
I think it's always difficult.
When I say that the Yanni is a bit lazy, it's lazy in the sense that he's not attracted to be all over the place doing many things, because he knows that there is nothing that's going to really fulfill, the mind, because the mind has to understand that it's already full in its nature, and then the mind is no longer providing all those rajas that allows people to be all over the place, running to accomplish things, So the Yanni becomes a little lazy in a positive way, because there is less rajas and there is more sattva, So we don't want to convert self-knowledge. Is not going to convert rajas into tamas, The real lazy people are the very tamasic people. So self-knowledge is going to convert rajas into more sattva and more sattva. So the Yanni is lazy, but not a tamasic lazy, but a sattvic lazy, He feels like to be okay, fine, and he does less things because he knows that not doing is going to really resolve the mind, And most Rajasic people, they do things as an attempt to resolve and pacify the mind, because if I get this, if I get that, if I accomplish this and that, and this then never comes,
So I'm really hearing you say, like, a Yanni is satisfied
Yes.
with what is provided, and just there isn't that push, that desire, that want to achieve, to get more, to do something, to avoid scarcity, to avoid things, that you're satisfied with what is provided to you by Ishwara.
Yeah, it's on those lines. So the yoni is not is not very much attracted to achieve, to accomplish, to gain more, and even not much concerned about having to keep what it has, So this knowledge is going to create this mental situation, condition in which this acceptance of life as it unfolds becomes more natural, you understand? And so it's a question of accepting what cannot be changed. It does not mean that you don't look after your body and your property and your family, but you don't do that with that kind of anxiety and expectation and attempt to control, and you do things from a different angle, but that makes all the difference.
There's the piece, Arlindo, of making a living, which you have to do for a while until you are ready to retire and have enough to sustain yourself. So that's creates some busyness for me, but it's
definitely
becoming less.
Yeah, and then I have shared with you guys a few times my situation. When I saw the lifestyle I have lived for my entire life, running, I used to be very energetic. I was blessed with self-recognition. And then immediately I want to stop that running, which was my lifestyle, for most of my life. So what I had to do, Karen, I had to downsize, simplify. A lot of the times we find ourselves in a situation that we say, I can't stop because, but there are always ways to cut costs, you understand? It's like a huge company, and if the market is no good, they have to begin reducing their costs and adjusting to the new market, to the new circumstance. Now, the seeker of moksha has a new situation, new circumstance, and then now he needs to align one's lifestyle to this new goal. My goal now is to develop a sattvic, contemplative mind. You understand? So if for that it takes to live in a more simple house, you understand? Eating more simple food, having one bicycle instead of 2 cars, so be it. Why? Because I understood that the real value is available in our mental condition. So if we develop a scientific mind, we are going to experience more and more peace and clarity, and we're going to have the mind, the intellect, in which self-knowledge can take place at any moment, the direct self-knowledge, So we need to make money. And I thought, I used to think I will never be able to stop my restaurant lifestyle until it became so clear to me. And I did it. And I had to hide from my best customers because nobody was able to understand how I could walk away from that. A positive, successful, profitable business. And I took a huge risk because I stopped when my level of income was almost impossible to live. Even in Brazil, I could not live. But you remember in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, keep your mind on me and me alone, that I will take care of your getting and your keeping, you understand? So it's all about, understanding the value of self-knowledge, the value of a sattvic mind. And then we need to compromise our comfort zone, you know? I mean, we are so used to all this comfortable lifestyle, you know, that sometimes we say, no, I can't live without this. I can't live without that. So we need to walk away from a beautiful middle-class home in Olympia, Washington. And for all these 6 years, we never had something really like a home until we bought this house now in the middle of nowhere. So you have to be willing to pay the price, you know. Okay, so I want to have peace of mind. I don't want the stress in my life. So the house has to go, the car has to go, that has to go, this has to go, you understand? And then in the end, I say, okay, so now I have less and less, but I have more peace, I have more clarity. It may feel a bit scary to let go of our lifestyle, of certain things, and circumstance and so on in the beginning, things that usually takes a lot to maintain and gives us a sense of security. And then in the beginning we feel like, no, I want both. I want the cake and I want to eat the cake, as Ramji likes to put. You understand? So you say like, no, I'm not going to give up on anything. I want everything from this world, and I want also self-knowledge and moksha and so on. And so until we understand that all these things we attach to, they don't really provide the security that we imagine we get from them, you know. And then you begin changing the security that you were looking before on things and circumstances and people. You begin looking in the understanding of yourself as the very source, the only source of security. Understand? Consciousness. You know, that would never change, that without a beginning, without an end, you know, that's the only source of happiness, peace, and security.
Would you say that can you differentiate this way between the psychological and the physical, like we were talking about moksha, that way, or, you know, removing suffering? So is there a way to look at this and say, well, simple life, I mean, it's psychological, because maybe you could achieve a simple life from a psychological point of view, and you still have the physical, you know, you still have the physical needs or desires. But is it really about creating a simple home or a place to live, or is it really more mental? Is it really more on the mind?
I mean, there are no problems in having many things. You know, if you have 2 cars and $1 million home or $2 million home and all of this, those things are not going to be an obstruction for your self-inquiry and self-realization. But if it takes enormous amount of energy for you to maintain that status, you understand? And then it's a problem. You understand? The problem is not inherently in the things you have. The problem is most like what it takes to keep those things, you know? In my case, so 6 years ago, to keep the nice home we had in Olympia, Washington, was going to keep me engaged, running, and doing a lot of stressful work. And then I said, no, I'm not against this beautiful home. My wife was with a broken heart to see that house go, because it was the first beautiful home she had in her life, you know. But she understood that that was the price to pay, you understand? Not that the house was a problem. The problem was now, how are we going to keep paying the mortgage of this house? You know? balance, moderation. You understand? We don't need to go and live under the bridge.
That's good. It's too cold to do that right now. It's cold here. No, it feels good to simplify. I've been in more of a simplify mode of clearing out things and clutter, and it feels good, you know, to do that.
It feels good, yeah. It does feel good. To be light, stay light.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something,
Yes, Maria?
Alinda?
Yes, Maria.
Yeah?
Please.
Well, I got this link for this Zoom from the app of the European School of Theosophy. So I'm sorry if I barge in your session, but could you tell me more about what you are doing here? What are you discussing about self-consciousness? Because I've studied, I mean, in my perceptions, there are 12 selves in our constitution. We are a compound being. So could you tell me more about what you were discussing?
Well, I mean, I don't discuss other philosophies or other schools of thoughts, other structures, you know. I don't compare, and my purpose here is just to unfold the teachings, the traditional teachings of the Upanishads. And the Upanishad says that
okay.
the nature of reality is non-dual consciousness. There is only one self, and this self is the essential nature of every human being. So we do this work as part of this sampradaya, which exists for millennia, and it's called Vedanta, or the teachings of the Upanishads, which is the final statements that you find in the Vedas. So I don't usually, I never go into comparing schools of thoughts or different religions or spiritual circles, you know. I stick to what I do, what I know, which is the Vedanta body of knowledge, which serves the purpose to reveal to an individual its true essential nature as limitless, pure consciousness. So that's what we are doing here, and we are discussing some questions that lingers a lot of the times, you know, and preventing us to fully understand the teachings of the Upanishads. That's what we are doing.
Yeah, I'm honored to hear what you were talking. And please pardon my English. I'm not that good. I hope I can express myself better. But it is good to share insights, your insights, and listening to what you all said. I'm very grateful, but I hope I don't. I mean, like a stranger coming in your circle.
No, you can come. You are welcome to come, but just please understand that we don't move from our sampradaya. You understand? For example, some people come to me and they are not really open to listen to the teachings of the Upanishads, because they're still like say yes, but you know, from my understanding and what I learned before from my philosophy or from my spiritual school is different. So if you come with the expectation of trying to share or present to us other schools, so it's important you to know that we are not interested, okay? So, but we are very happy
Yeah.
to have you here if you want to listen to the unfoldment of the teachings of the Upanishads. You are totally welcome. Okay.
Okay, that's very kind. I too studied the Mandukya Upanishad. I don't know if
Nice.
you are
Of course.
familiar with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going
So
to be
then
our next text is going to be the Mandukya. We are finishing the
Okay.
Viveka Shuddhamani, and then we're going to go into the Mandukya. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I would just listen today to your interesting talk.
Yeah.
And okay, thank you so much.
You are most welcome, Maria. Anybody else?
Well, and for Maria, that Monday session might be more appropriate too.
Yeah. Monday session. Yeah. Maria, I will. I don't know how you got this link, but if you are interested, I can add you to our email list, and then you get the invitations for our class on Monday and our Q&As on Thursday.
I will put my email on the chat, okay?
Yes. Okay. Do that, please.
So you can copy it. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
I think it's probably too late for a new question, but I wanted to just comment that from another way of looking at all of this, it's just really like a growing love affair that you want to have your mind more and more on the self. And then the simplicity just showers down on you a little bit. You know, sort of. So it's like the importance to me of perfecting karma yoga and upasana yoga, and really help the whole thing fructify, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's, I mean, we have been in the Vedanta bus for quite some time, and we, on different levels, we are developing this Vedantic view, you understand? And we know how, how wide this understanding takes, because it embraces Mithya in all aspects of Mithya and Satya. So it is a nice work to be done. And it takes some time until we begin, developing this value and this vision, and the vision of this non-dual reality, as presented by Vedanta, and the value for this knowledge, understanding. So it takes some work, which includes, karma, dharma, and vipassana yoga as well. Yeah. So when we look back, it's more than a year since we are doing these meetings, So can you see how much ground we have covered, how much more clear and more established this self-knowledge is for each one of us, It does work, but it requires work. Do you have a question, Lynn?
Well, I did have a question about time, but it's a little bit too deep, I think. At some point, I'll write the question down to you.
Okay.
But it's very, and I can't get there right now.
Yeah, it sounds very philosophical as well. Yeah, time, when we start messing or dealing with time, things get a little philosophical.
You've frozen.
I said that when we start talking about time, often we go more into philosophy. Because it's a very subtle subject, time. Is my signal going down? Okay.
Yeah, you're going in and out, Arlindo.
Okay, I was saying that time is a very subtle subject, although it's not, it's relatively simple. You know, it's when, can you hear me?
A little better.
Yeah, yeah, I took the video. So when we come into this realm of duality, the subject-object interaction, you know, jiva, the jiva subject and the other objects appearing within the scope of jiva's mind, when we go into that, and then immediately we have this sense of time, because we see the other objects appearing in space, and space established time as a distance or time to how you say, to cover a certain distance between here and there, and time as a duration of a certain experience, or even can go to the extreme of time as an experience of silence between thoughts, and so on. All of these surface as we go into this duality, this primordial duality, which is the jiva subject and the other objects appearing in the mind of the jiva. That established time. Yeah. Well, we can go, I'm curious to see next time the question of Lin, because we can go, you can go, as I said, more very deep and more philosophical sometimes, if we want to go into time, yeah, and space.
I'll send it along. It started when we were reading that in a few verses back, time is divisionless. And I started, I've been stuck on this time question for a couple of weeks, but I will try to codify some kind of something that I can write down.
Okay, yeah, send it to me so that I can do some homework. Okay, so my signal is going down here. Maybe it's time to close our session. I think it was a good one. David got us with some nice questions. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, thank you. Let me see here if I find the email. Yeah, Maria, let me copy it.
Okay. And Happy New Year, everyone. And
Yes.
see you next year.
Forgot, this is our last satsang of the year.
Yes. Very good year. Thank you. It's one of the highlights of 2020. Yep.
Yeah, that's what Mark
Thank
wrote.
you.
Mark wrote me today the same thing. He was apologizing that he couldn't be here with us, but said that this difficult 2020, the highlight has been for him our meeting there. Was very pleased to hear that. Yeah. Okay, much love to all. Okay, see you next Monday.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
New Year. Ciao.
Ciao.